how does a guy have 4 wives? And there not be jealousy? Well, we now know there's at least 1 wife.
We've always said there was. I've admitted it even
We've
weren't.
always said that there was jealousy and that we always deal with it.
I think that you have greatly downplayed it until this season. Yes, you have, but you've addressed it as a,
I'll give you that.
But
Yeah.
not until now have we, 6 seasons in, seen how hard it is for at least 1 wife.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday, April 14th. Guess what? Sister Wives is back on Sunday. There will be 5 new episodes and 4 tell-all episodes. And guess who will not be back for the tell-all for season 19? Tamron Hall. Do you remember when Tamron used to be the host of the tell-all? She actually did, 4 or 5 seasons of the tell-all. And then suddenly she was done. And the last tell-all that she was engaged in, it was 2015, and she confronted the wives about jealousy, and there was a lot of silence on the set, and nobody wanted to talk about it. And Christine famously shared that the one thing that she was jealous of when it came to the show, when it came to Cody, was time and where he spends his time. And Tamron basically scolded him and said, like, I don't know if you're actually doing a good job with your time. Do you want a reminder here? Okay.
I think that means yes. The silence means
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to say is you asked for a specific example, and I'm not going to rat Christine out. That's what I was trying to say. Good girls
Well, that's
code.
very sweet. So rat yourself out, Christine.
I think we all just have different levels of jealousy moments at different times, depending on where we are within ourselves.
Cody didn't appreciate being called out about the jealousy, and he didn't like that they claimed that they had downplayed the jealousy. And they did. Up until 2015, no one on the show really confronted Cody about the amount of time that he was spending with Robyn, and not everyone else. And it was Christine that blew the whistle on Cody in that season about the amount of time that he was spending with one specific wife, and how there was not any or a lack of time he was spending with her. This complaint by Christine was persistent and ongoing from the day that Robyn joined the family. So it wasn't a new complaint, by the way. And that was the season that Christine got a little bit more vocal, but they were still so in that mode of protecting Cody and protecting the show and protecting the lie, right? And Tamron never recovered, never was brought back, never came back to the show. Meri tried to even defend Cody at one point, and so did Robyn by, trying to downplay it and saying they weren't going to rat out the jealousy. But let's be clear, all the women at different times were jealous. It wasn't just a Christine thing. This was just Christine was the only one willing to say it.
We see Cody run from house to house, spending time with the kids, taking trash out, and you've all said, he's a fantastic father and husband. So I'm trying to visualize a circumstance that would warrant the harsh feeling of jealousy.
Not a specific instance, but what I get jealous about most is time.
In broadcasting and on television, silence is deadly, because when there's silence in commentary, or there's silence in an interview, or there's silence on a show, sometimes people will stop watching. So you want to keep the conversation going. There was a 5.5-second moment of silence. That's a long time where not one of them responded to the question about jealousy. You look at Meri, who at this point was estranged from Cody. Wild that she couldn't say a thing, right? Janelle says nothing. There's a look of like disdain on Cody's eyes. And Christine then almost begrudgingly is like, yeah, it's time. And then it gets a little bit worse, because after she finally does speak, Tamron then scolds Cody for not adhering to his quote unquote schedule. Maybe he wasn't doing what he was promising to do. And I'm sharing this because something's happening this week that's pretty shocking. Someone's returning to Tamron's show, but also to say that the only reason why Suki stays on the series is because once you have an interaction like this with Cody, you're gone. If he doesn't like you and he feels like he's been on the spot or they don't feel safe or whatever happened, they fired people. That's why they had, over the course of the seasons, so many different people that did tell-alls. If they asked questions that they didn't want to answer, or if they pushed them, they were fired. And this was the last season Tamron was on. I'll show you the last part here, and then we'll talk about what's coming up with Tamron and the sister wife.
And where he spends his time. And that's what it comes down to most with me. And I think about time a lot, probably.
But you've told me, Cody, in the past you have, I don't want to describe it as a system, but you have tried to be aware of the calendar and be aware of the time. Are you failing?
Back then, they did all of the tell-alls with everyone sitting together and having to like confront one another. And so the conversations were always so guarded. Now that they're one-on-one, it gets a little bit more juicy. But at the same time, when Cody gets confronted about something, he shuts it down or he's incredibly dismissive, rude, condescending, sometimes a little bit sexist to Suki. And for whatever reason, Suki goes with it and behaves the way that Cody wants. So I don't know if she'll return after this season, but Tamron's last season as a tell-all host was that season. And she confronted Cody about possibly being a failure and almost in a way exposing the fraud of the family. And I think when someone is around them long enough, and if they are a journalist, they're going to want to ask questions that are not just on a script. It would be, I think, hard for anyone to not watch the show and then want to dive deeper than what's on the surface, right? And so Tamron has always been that kind of journalist. She likes to go a little bit deeper and she likes to talk about culture and, go into different areas of the world. I mean, she's had on the Duggar girls with their books. She's not afraid to shy away from the controversy of these shows, right? And the controversy of what they're covering. And this week, Meri Brown is returning and she's going to be on Tamron Hall. And it's wild to me because they haven't interacted with this woman in a decade because of her getting fired from the show. And now she's going to go on to Tamron Hall and share what's coming up in the remainder of the season and speak to Tamron about what's going on in her life, which is very wild. Think of it this way. Cody and Robyn would view going anywhere that forces them to answer the tough questions a hostile environment. They would consider anyone that pushes back on their choices or tries to provide a balance or a counterpoint to what they're showing on the show as hostile or unsafe. Anyone that dares to ask them the really tough questions back then and even today, some of them still today are not safe. Anyone. I am unsafe for the family because I don't take what they say as fact. I understand the cult they come from, even though some of them say that they're not a part of the cult anymore. I understand that. But at the same time, cult speak and cult programming is not an easy thing to get rid of or absolve. And Cody's behavior, since he's become not a polygamist, hasn't changed his behavior whatsoever. I don't find him to be any less mean. I still think he's sexist, chauvinistic, cruel, rude, domineering, not nice to his children, a bully, right? And so anyone that wants to put him on task, is deemed unsafe. And what I've always thought strange about these tell-alls, by the way, is that it's always a woman. It's always a woman that's interviewing them. Cody Brown did not like his wives being around men and didn't like them being engaged or being able to speak to other men. And so the host of the tell-alls were always women. I don't think that's a coincidence. And Cody will not himself be interviewed by people unless these are people that are going to be understanding to his situation. They're not going to push back on what he does. They're not going to put him in a situation where he has to defend himself. And Cody is going to feel superior to a woman. When he is forced to be interviewed by men, which doesn't happen very often, by the way, it's a lot harder for him to control the conversation because he's being with someone that can see through him. Like my husband can't stand Cody and can see through him completely. And I think a lot of guys know what he's about. And so they see through him and they would hold him accountable. Women are going to be a little bit more sympathetic, and Cody is going to be like, I can bamboozle them and I can control them and I can domineer them. So Suki, it allows him in a way to control her, and she doesn't overstep as much as we want her to, because if she does, she'll get fired. This week, Meri is going to be on the Tamron Hall show. So when I think about Meri returning there, I think of Meri going to a space where it's not safe, but now that she's out, that wasn't safe. And now that she's out, she's able to go there without the concern about upsetting Cody. McKelty said that once someone left the tell-all and a host was gone, it was because they had been fired. She said it was they had done something or made someone uncomfortable, or a question was asked that they didn't like, oftentimes to Cody, and they never came back. So Cody would probably never be seen on Tamron's show. Robyn would never be seen on Tamron's show, but Meri's going there. And she's very excited, you guys, to be on the show. So Tamron announced this week's guests, and on Wednesday, she's going to have 2 exclusives. The first part of this episode is going to be Meri Brown, who is going to speak about what's new this season and what's going on in her life. And then she's having Soleil Moon Frye and Angel Carter Conrad, who are going to be on to talk about Aaron Carter, his death, and a new documentary called The Carters, which is looking into their life with never before seen footage. So Angel was Aaron's twin sister, but Meri will be in the first half of the episode. And she on her Instagram said, well, this is fun. Check your local listings on Wednesday. Looking forward to my little chat with Tamron. Again, prior to leaving Cody, she never would have done this, ever. Literally ever. She also debuted a stunning look where she appeared in a black dress at a event for the Global Beauty Awards. And she said it was a pleasure and honor to spend the last 2 days at the Global Beauty Awards. Sitting in on events and classes and seeing some of the behind the scenes was such an experience. It was an absolute pleasure to spend days with you. She tagged a couple people, and now have 2 new friends across the globe. You are treasures. And then apparently she went for LuLaRoe because she went with Deanne, who runs LuLaRoe. Always so good spending time with you. Your smile and laughter lights up a room. And then another person named Robyn Brock. I'm in awe of you. I honor you. My life is better because you're in it. Thank you would never be enough for what you bring to my world. I love you, and I love you, and I love you. And she looked fantastic. She had a black dress on, showed her shoulders. Never would have done that before leaving Cody. Never would have worn a dress like this prior to leaving the cult, ever. Everyone's talking about the weight loss. I could care less if she weighed the same. I'm more looking at the shoulders that she's showing. The neckline never would have been a thing before when she was with Cody. Cody wouldn't be like, you're never going to wear this. And Meri would have shamed her daughters, or the daughters of the family, not Leon. I'm talking about like McKelty and the others, for wearing something like this back in the day. She's come a long way. So Meri is going to a previously hostile environment, and she's going to speak with Tamron, and I'm assuming is going to realize that Tamron is a good person and not a bad person and not unsafe. And I think it's just more indication that Meri is moving on. Also, I find it incredibly weird that this is Cody's show, by the way, and he and Robyn don't do any promotion. Have you ever watched a reality show where the person involved in the show doesn't do any interviews? Cody and Robyn have done 0 interviews this whole season. 0 on-camera interviews. 0. Christine and Janelle and Meri have done most of the promotion for the show. So even today, even after leaving, they are still having to promote and carry the show for Cody. It's wild. And I think Cody's just like, won't do it because everyone hates him. But then don't be on reality TV, dude. So, what are your thoughts about Meri's new look and Meri going to a hostile environment, which is actually not that hostile because Tamron Hall seems so nice and so sweet and like so kind. And she really wanted the best for these women. And what do you think that says to Cody and Robyn that Meri's going there? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.